In order to avenge his wife and daughter who had died a tragic death, the man picked up a knife and charged at the murderer. But suddenly, he was tripped by a police officer and then subdued. And to his astonishment, the murderer even gave him a smug smile. On the day of the trial, the murderer was not sentenced to death. Because in their country, the death penalty had not been carried out since 1997. So the criminal would still be protected by the police and spend the rest of his life in prison. The man simply could not accept this absurd outcome. He was so desperate that he hanged himself that very day. But just 1 second before he died, the rope suddenly broke. Looking at the wedding photo that fell with him, the man realized that the law was a shield for the murderer. So, he made a crazy decision. He would take revenge on his wife's behalf in his own way. After that day, the man quit his job and began to do intense physical training at home every day to force his body to become stronger. At the same time, he also practiced knife skills and various killing techniques at home, all for the day when he could kill the murderer with his own hands. 3 years later, one day, the man finally got his chance for revenge. There was a gang leader who had been framed by his own subordinates and sent to prison, and he happened to be in the same prison as the murderer. So the man found the gang leader, who was on parole for one day to attend a funeral, and gave him the evidence of the framing. They made a deal to kill each other's enemies. The man quickly killed one of the subordinates in a hotel. Because he was quick and had his face well covered, the police didn't discover him right away. But the other subordinate was not so easy to deal with because he was always surrounded by a large number of gang members every day. So the man hid on the road that the subordinate had to pass every day and took the opportunity to crash into his car. Even though the gang members arrived, the man didn't run away. Instead, he accelerated and crashed into the subordinate's car again, because only by making him dead for sure would the gang leader in prison keep his promise. Soon, dozens of gang members with steel pipes came over and smashed the man's car windows to pieces. Then they dragged him out of the car and started beating him with their clubs. Just as the man was about to be beaten to death, a gunshot was heard. The gang members, seeing that the police were alerted, let the man go and left. But in the blink of an eye, the man also took advantage of the chaos and got away. And more luckily, the last target also died from excessive bleeding. When the gang leader received the news that the two subordinates were dead, he took out a piece of steel rebar that he had sharpened for 2 years. Then, while the murderer was taking a shower in prison, he stabbed him right through. The two of them then started a fierce fight. The murderer was clearly no match for the gang leader. But just as the murderer was about to be slowly stabbed to death, the gang leader seemed to remember something and chose to stop. But this gave the murderer a chance to fight back. Do you think the murderer will be killed?